Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer on the Subha Sutta. Today, we're decoding what I like to call the architecture of inner peace. You know, in our incredibly chaotic, constantly plugged-in modern era, especially as we try to navigate this massive, fast-paced age of AI, finding any sort of true mental quiet just feels harder than ever. But what if there was an ancient, deeply relevant operating system for the human mind? One that could systematically install peace, literally step by step. Well, that is exactly what this 2,500-year-old text gives us.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with Subha's question, move on to Noble Sīla, which is life's foundation. Then we'll cover abandoning hindrances to free the mind, entering Noble Samādhi for a focused mind, and finally unlocking Noble Paññā, or enlightenment, before we wrap up with our conclusion.
Okay, Part 1. Intro. Subha's question. Seeking the ultimate operating system for the mind. So, the scene is set right after the Buddha's passing. A young man named Subha sends a messenger to request a meeting with Venerable Ānanda. Ānanda actually delays it by a day because he had just taken some purgative medicine, but they do end up meeting the very next morning.
Now, when they finally sit down, Subha has this burning inquiry. He knows Ānanda was literally right by the Buddha's side for decades. So he straight up asks, what exactly did the Buddha praise? Like, what specific practices did he most highly encourage people to take up and actually maintain? Subha isn't looking for some vague, floaty philosophy here. He wants the exact roadmap.
And Ānanda's answer is brilliant. He points right to the Three Noble Aggregates. This is the ultimate threefold training. Noble morality, or Sīla, noble concentration, or Samādhi, and noble wisdom, or Paññā. Ānanda explains that this specific framework maps the entire spiritual journey. It takes you from the very moment someone decides to shave their head and leave behind the dusty, cluttered household life, all the way to achieving ultimate mental mastery.
Moving to Part 2, Noble Sīla, life's foundation. Peace begins with boundaries. So, this is Phase 1 of our mental operating system. Ānanda explains that true inner peace, it doesn't just spontaneously happen in a vacuum. It absolutely requires a secure perimeter. By setting up boundaries of morality, the mind is completely protected from regret and external conflict. In fact, the text says a person who perfects these boundaries feels this flawless happiness at their core. It's compared to an anointed king who has finally defeated all of his enemies and faces absolutely no danger from any direction.
Let's break down how this foundation is built across minor, medium, and major moralities. And what is so incredibly timeless about these principles is just how applicable they are right now. The minor morality covers basics, right? Avoiding harm, avoiding lying, and protecting seeds and plants. Then, the medium level shifts to what we consume mentally. It means avoiding frivolous theatrical shows, gambling, and what they called animal talk, basically gossip about kings, politics, and worldly drama. Sound familiar at all? It's literally the ancient equivalent of a digital detox and putting an end to doom scrolling. And lastly, the major morality involves shunning deceptive magic, predicting eclipses, and spreading misinformation. You establish peace by actively, intentionally cutting off the noise.
Now, Subha hears this massive, comprehensive list of flawless moral behavior, and he is just absolutely amazed. He's thinking, wow, this perfect morality must be the end goal. But Ānanda drops this absolutely crucial reminder. He says, in this Dhamma and discipline, there is still more to be done. Morality is merely the foundation. It clears the construction site, sure, but the building hasn't even been erected yet.
That brings us to Part 3. Abandoning hindrances. Clearing the bugs in the system. We're entering Phase 2 of mental mastery here. The practitioner guards their sense doors and maintains clear comprehension in absolutely every action. And through this, they find a radical contentment. It's compared to a bird that flies carrying nothing but the weight of its own wings. Just imagine feeling that incredibly light.
But to achieve that kind of lightness, we actually have to overcome 5 specific mental bugs. The Buddha mapped these out with some incredible psychological analogies. Sensual desire, that's like carrying a heavy, crushing debt. Overcoming it feels exactly like finally being debt-free. Ill will is compared to a severe, painful disease, and abandoning it feels like being fully cured and restored. Sloth and torpor, or mental laziness, is like being stuck in a dark, confined prison. Overcoming that is like experiencing a joyous royal pardon. Restlessness is equated to slavery, so freeing the mind is finally becoming your own master. And doubt is like crossing a highly dangerous, starving desert road. Resolving it is like finally safely reaching a prosperous village. Think about how these emotional states actually feel in your own life. When you drop a massive source of anxiety, that relief is visceral.
Part 4. Noble Samadhi. Entering unshakable flow. So once those 5 hindrances are completely out of the way, the mind is no longer scattered. It can finally access these profound, unshakable states of deep concentration, which the text calls the 4 jhanas.
Let's walk through these stunning visual water metaphors the text uses for these 4 levels of jhana, because they are beautiful. The first jhana is like a skilled bathman perfectly mixing moist bath powder, so the moisture completely saturates the powder without it scattering at all. It's a highly cohesive, unified joy. The second jhana goes deeper. It's like a cool spring welling up from within a still lake that has no external inlets. The joy is bubbling up entirely from within. The third jhana is compared to lotus flowers, completely submerged in water, steeped in this cool serenity all the way from their roots right up to their tips. And finally, the fourth jhana drops all emotional turbulence entirely. It becomes perfectly neutral and pure, compared to a man wrapped cleanly in a brilliant white cloth. Just absolute blemish-free focus.
And once again, Subhata is completely blown away. He genuinely believes this perfectly peaceful, unshakable concentration must surely be the ultimate spiritual goal. I mean, who wouldn't want to live wrapped in a mental white cloth of pure peace, right? But Ānanda relentlessly pushes back again. He asserts that even with this profound peace, the highest work is still left unfinished. See, the mind is now a perfectly sharpened tool, yes, but it hasn't actually been used yet to cut through the ultimate illusion of reality.
Which leads to Part 5, Noble Paññā, enlightenment, and the ultimate expansion of awareness. This perfectly concentrated, blemish-free mind we just built is now directed towards supernormal insights. This is where the operating system completely decodes reality.
The text outlines this breathtaking progression of 8 knowledges of wisdom, using some amazing analogies to make these super abstract concepts graspable. First up is insight knowledge. This is seeing the physical body's impermanence. Much like observing a beautiful lapis lazuli gem threaded on a string, you see exactly how consciousness threads through matter. Then, the ability to create a mind-made body is vividly described as drawing a sword seamlessly from its scabbard. It progresses rapidly from there to psychic powers, which are molded effortlessly like a potter expertly shaping clay. The divine ear hears all frequencies, like a traveler recognizing the specific sounds of distant drums. Reading minds becomes as clear as checking a highly polished mirror for blemishes on your own face. Recalling past lives is likened to a traveler remembering their exact journeys from one village to the next. The divine eye sees the cosmic migration of beings, just like watching a busy crossroad from a high mansion window. And finally, the ultimate climax, the destruction of taints. This is the realization of absolute truth. It's compared to looking down into a perfectly clear mountain pool and seeing the shells, the gravel, and the fish resting clearly at the bottom. Absolute unfiltered clarity.
Finally, Part 6, Conclusion. Peace starts within, and Subha's absolute clarity. With the explanation of that final, ultimate insight, Subha realizes the architectural blueprint is finally complete. The 4 noble truths are realized, and the highest liberation of the mind has been systematically achieved. Ānanda confirms it. There is nothing more to be done. The system is fully operational.
We'll wrap up today with Subha's beautiful declaration where he takes refuge. He says it's like a person turning upright what was upside down, revealing what was hidden, pointing the way to the lost, or holding a lamp in the dark. This operating system took a mind in the dark and flooded it with clear, structured light. So the question I want to leave you with today is this. In our modern, completely distracted digital lives, which, let's be honest, are so often turned completely upside down, how will you apply this timeless, clear light to start building your own architecture of inner peace? Thanks so much for learning with me in this explainer. Keep focusing, and I'll see you next time.